Next up, I have the absolute honor to again be talking to Viktor Tron. Viktor just finished, or is it ever finished, but just wrote the book of Swarm and released this a couple of months ago. Viktor, can you join me if you fancy a chat?
I'm joined. Thank you.
Yes, there you are. Awesome. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Awesome. So Viktor, I'm gonna jump right in because we only have like 20 minutes, I think, and we try to keep a tight schedule here. So it's like asking me to keep a tight schedule now. First of all, let's dive right in. People have been talking to me and everybody in this Ethereum and decentralized space about the Holy Trinity, which is like terribly, almost like a Catholic thing for me to hear, and I always wonder what this has to do with computer science. So could you elaborate on that, and could you explain what people like Vitalik mean by that if they speak about it?
Yeah. First, the Holy Trinity is an interesting concept. Let's take two aspects of it. Like one's the substantial, one's the kind of style aspect. The more important one is the substantial aspect. The Holy Trinity stands for the three components that make up a computer, and taking that analogy and apply it to the word computer. What is the word computer? Well, when Bitcoin came and first showed that a decentralized consensus is possible to implement with the blockchain, then Bitcoin as the first application was able to do only like financial transactions, basically changing rows in an Excel spreadsheet, if you like. So, so the complexity of the operations were kind of limited, as in the macro language. And then came the genius of Vitalik, who realized that a virtual machine can equally be kind of given in this framework, and therefore you can have a distributed consensus over global computation. So it can be the basis of a word computer's CPU. This analogy came into being. And then soon they realized, what do we want the word computer for? I mean, word computer should be the infrastructure for the World Wide Web, after all. So it's finally possible to create the Web3 vision of the new re-decentralized web, as in the old days, but with much better technology building on Web 2.0. And so what ingredients do you need for the word computer to function? Well, you have the public blockchain, which is the CPU at the central processing unit, secure computation unit. And all you need is on top of that is scalable data storage and retrieval mechanism, which is the original concept of Swarm. And thirdly, a messaging component, which is responsible for real-time data transfer between agents and nodes. And Swarm kind of took this ambition and this the realization of this word computer very seriously, and we have it on our banner to provide the missing ingredients that finally complete this vision and bring the word computer to life. However, we like these analogies, and the Holy Trinity, of course, on the other side, was conceived of at the time when Ethereum was fed with strange letters, and when dApps was first fed the Icelandic sounds letter, and things like that. That was fashionable too, because of the kind of unexpected kind of fandom surrounding, like very heightened enthusiasm surrounding the blockchain, and especially the Turing complete blockchain, what it makes possible. People kind of resorted to religious kind of parlance as a joke, and this is mainly a gimmick made by Vitalik, which is on a par with a lot of other things that Swarm inherited, among others the BZZ name for the protocol, as well as
So do I hear correctly that, or do I understand correctly that there's like three parts of the world computer? Ethereum is one, it was supposed to be three, and now Swarm is taking over not only the second part, storage, but also the messaging part?
Yes, indeed. We're kind of providing the the other layers that would complete the word computer. And the first component to that is the hard, what's the hard disk of the word computer. Of course, this hard disk is a distributed system. Make fun of this kind of connotation with using the word disk, which is an acronym for distributed immutable storage of chunks. The dev guys will talk about it before. This is important because this is the focus of this app release as well. This is the ground layer of that basically the network that organizes a storage solution in a decentralized and private way. And yes, the ambition is to provide all the basic primitives that you need as Lego pieces to build up in a modular way more and more complex applications that fully utilize the decentralized paradigm. So instead of having the server client infrastructure and deployment on your gate hosted service, the applications in a decentralized world will be automatically scalable, right away uploaded on Swarm. And they incentivize the secured and they decentralized.
Awesome. So I remember from science fiction films in the 80s that the internet was kind of supposed to be like this giant organism that came to life and was like a world computer. So as far as I always learned, the internet is decentralized. So why are you guys, let's say, always talking about, yeah, we need more decentralization? Because isn't the internet like inherently decentralized?
Well, this is a complex interaction of various economic factors, of course. So let's go back to the times of Web 1 when you basically you own the hosting service, your own server, and you're growing along happily. What happened if your blog suddenly became very popular? Well, maybe you became slashdotted, like listed on an important and popular site. Then all the requests came in, and basically you DDoSed your own server because it was not meant to be serving such bandwidth, and therefore as a result your costs skyrocketed, or in the worst case even the server crashed under the load and basically never managed to serve anyone who really needed to see consume what you want. So, but at least at that time you owned your data to a certain extent. And now, like in the Web 2 land, all kinds of companies came to the rescue to serve this need, to provide infrastructure which is automatically scalable, so kind of comfortably hosting these publication needs and serve these publication needs. And unfortunately, it led to platformization and a lot of fragmentation in the domain. And unluckily, the fact that these platforms provided the storage and organization of your personal data, they became kind of data silos with a very strong lock-in problem, in the sense that switching cost from between within these platforms is kind of prohibitively high at the moment. And let alone even for applications that don't have the network effect. Like obviously, it's difficult to leave Facebook because all your friends need to leave Facebook. But it's also difficult to leave the Google Docs and the rest. So the idea is to have a very different paradigm in which your data stays in your own hands. Basically, you're sovereign owner of your data, and instead applications kind of need to have permissions to access your data and organize it in a way that you want, like basically a Twitter scheme to your own updates, or a threaded view of a newsroom and forum. It's kind of one of the very, very high level components that don't necessarily build up the same infrastructure, usually faulty and insecure. And very
yeah, it's like going on the infrastructure, because I really like the vision. I think everybody can agree on that. But like, can you explain, like in a sort of like real world example? Like I remember when I first had to explain email to my mom, I used like the concept of, you know, like the real postal service and how that would change electronically. So how could you explain Swarm with like real world metaphors?
I mean, the core of Swarm is really, it's a bit like base infrastructure, base level infrastructure. I would compare it to introducing running water, or pipelines for running water, in a way, which is kind of similar in a way to what the way we talked about the blockchain, because by its very nature, because it's providing decentralized consensus, which is the core need for kind of single source of truth, which is needed in a lot of fields. It applies an effectively changing practices, or it has the promise of changing practices in all verticals. And that's why, on the one hand, it's a bit dangerous proposition, because it sounds like the witch doctor who can cure you of every illness that you have. But on the other hand, it's also difficult to attach one particular killer app to it, because you kind of clearly see that it will benefit everything. And yeah, so it's a good question to ask, like what applications we expect to be emerging, and in what pace. And in that regard, there's lots of ideas and lots of ways we can facilitate that it's done in the most efficient way.
So if we were talking earlier about the Holy Trinity, then I must say you probably wrote the Bible on decentralized storage with the Book of Swarm. But how do we go from this grand vision? I would advise everybody who has some free time to dive into the Book of Swarm, by the way, because it's a really interesting read. But how are we going from that grand vision to, I guess, a very concrete, you know, app? I mean, I should run something on my computer, right?
Very good question. So I consolidated the past 4 or 5 years of the team's research into this book called Book of Swarm. Of course, please don't take it seriously. I mean, it's obvious some of these references, but it's used as a gimmick as usual. It's not meant to be in any sense the final word about this. However, it does propose as specific parts as actually implementation specs. Or specs for implementations across various clients. So it means to consolidate the important ingredients and components of the system in a very rigorous manner, grouping them under protocols, data structures, and algorithms, strategies, and APIs. So these are defined in the book. Not all of them are worked out as yet. The book has basically the extended motivation that we talked about, including the data silos and data captive, kind of corporate internet we live in at the moment, as well as kind of a more positive outlook on fair data economy, and how Swarm and similar systems can facilitate that, and also how important is the possibly coming new paradigm of synergy of these software and infrastructure services is on businesses, how it lowers the barrier of entry and obviates the need to put up upfront capital to invest in infrastructure. And the core of that is Swarm's proposition to basically offload most of the infrastructure and base technological cost to the users, exactly to the extent that scaling the user base necessitates. And this also brings me back to your question about how the ecosystem might arrange, how we arrive at an app. I mean, an important takeaway from the 4 years of development of Swarm was that we finally understood what we're building. It was not easy. It was a lot of iterations, a lot of experiments, which you can see with the current Swarm client on the testnet. Is an extremely feature-rich client. It has a few unknown bugs, which exactly proves the point of why we needed to cut it, and together we kind of in synchronicity with the book, you kind of understood like what really the basic ingredients are, what are the primitives that in a way perfect, that so you can't get rid of anything, and that's what builds it up. And these are the primitives of the chunk storage that are realized and implemented in B. And how you get from that, so basically you can have various layers on top of that which realize higher level functionality. So I'll tell you an example. With the chunk layer you can have chunk storage primitives and higher level functionalities, for example, to upload a directory and represent it in somehow in Swamp in a way that when you download it, you can reproduce that directory, like such a simple case. So basically, like that would be the basis of the Dropbox client. And this brings us to the last thought, is that I envision that most of the applications that directly use some of these core features, so basically file organizers, publishing platforms, Dropbox-like things, or the already existing FairDrop software that you're gonna see in a minute in the demo. These are kind of direct uses of the core protocol offerings, and on top of that, I imagine that there's going to be an ecosystem and kind of an ecosystem of various libraries and tooling initiatives, which ultimately bring about, as I said, like modularly built up more complex libraries. For example, Facebook as a library or Forum as a library, and these can all interact because of the shared API and the shared incentive system. We can work very well together. So my vision is that it's going to be extremely easy to actually finally bring about those wishes that were around at the time the Ethereum launched, that we're going to have our decentralized Airbnbs, our decentralized Ubers and Twitters and etc.
Okay, Victor, I'm afraid that we have to round it up because both the stage manager and the event manager are like in the backstage, like doing this, like you have to round it up now. I guess this is all we have time for, but before you go, I hate to put you here on the spot. I know we're in a live stream, but still I'm gonna do it. But when do I have my Alpha B or my Swarm in my computer? Because I've been dying to use it.
Well, whatever I say, don't believe me. I defer this question to my colleagues who come in the later sessions, but I definitely promise something in the mainnet this year.
Something on mainnet this year. Yes, the papers can now start writing their headlines for tomorrow. Thank you so much, Victor. We will be hearing from you more in the AMA. As always, thank you so much for this conversation, and I hope to see you soon and in real life and later in the AMA. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.